So what I was going to talk about was, I guess, the fact that initially I felt a little bit embarrassed, maybe, or guilty is probably a better word, that I was getting sort of distracted. But one of the things I've kind of worked out is getting distracted, is sort of slowing down and thinking things in a slightly broader context isn't necessarily such a bad thing. Most of the processes, I guess, that we run with respect to developing customer experience sort of strategy and sort of designed experiences, and even kind of in the customer sort of service space as well, are orientated around the kind of the three tenets of design thinking. Those being empathy, so empathy for the end customer; expansive thinking, which I always think is just a flash way of saying creative thinking; and experimentation, so experimenting on some of the ideas and outputs that come out of the expansive sort of thinking. And this is probably where I think that increasingly maybe we're getting things just a little bit wrong. Nothing wrong with the processes that we're running. We've been doing that for some time now. They're quite sort of well evolved sort of processes, and I think they're pretty solid. But what we're putting into those processes, I think, it could be time to just sort of slow down and maybe have a sort of a rethink on what we're putting into the processes that we're running. So that whole idea, I guess, of expansive creative thinking, creativity, it's not magic. It relies on recombining information and perceptions of the world around us. So it's kind of limited to the existing information and experiences that we have had or that we've been able to sort of research. And so typically what comes out of a workshop is only ever a recombination of what actually went into the workshop. So whether it went in the heads of the participants, i.e. their past experiences and their sort of their thinking, or the information that's been gathered, the research that's been gathered to feed the workshop sort of process. And I've kind of sort of seen a number of workshops in the creative and strategic sort of process where the participants have seemed a little bit underwhelmed, I guess, or disheartened about the outputs that they've got out of that particular sort of process. Largely because no matter what type of sort of process or workshop activity they kind of engage in, the outputs largely sort of tend to look kind of the same. And so my sense is that we can kind of do better with what we put into the workshops and what we push into those processes and methodologies to create better customer experiences. And to do that, I think what we need to do is we need access to new information possibly that we don't necessarily know exists yet. So as I've stared out the window, the sort of things that I'm kind of asking myself is things like, am I looking for information in the same places as I did yesterday or even last year? Am I looking at the research with the same lens and the same assumptions maybe, or within the same boundaries, or using the sort of same logic? Am I asking the same questions I already have a pretty fair idea I kind of already know the answers to? Or am I using the same tools or methods as my clients' competitors, or maybe even the standard tools of the whole industry? And so I guess my thinking is, where and how can we look for different ways of sourcing information to feed our sort of CX processes? Because the reality is, information is definitely a competitive advantage, and it's always going to be the best, well, one of the most vital and best resources to feed into any well-run process. But in order to do that, we need to slow down and challenge our thinking around the very notion of what information actually is and where can we find it. Because we need to find that new information, not more of the same information, but we need new information, we need new content, new thinking to push into our now, as I sort of say, really well-refined processes that we use, largely design thinking processes. And we need to find new ways of experimenting with how we find the core resources to all our sort of processes and informational insight. Information is obviously an essential component of experimentation, so I think it will sort of support that. And so that's my I guess that's my question, which is how can we slow down and reassess how we feed our processes and practices with one of their most vital components, which is information. Thanks for listening.